Hello, this is Now Tell Us, and I'd like you to partner with me in spreading this episode the farthest that you can. Share it all with all your friends, and let them know that we are live and we are having some great conversation. And please join with us in this conversation, and we are going to be talking about strategic partnerships. And at Now Tell Us, we always have guests, great guests. So this is no exception. We have a great guest who is coming here shortly. His name is known as Pelucha, and he's gonna tell us a lot. And because I don't want to waste one more minute, because he has a lot to share with us, why don't you join me? Yeah, let's partner together and go and meet him. How's that? Yeah, to talk about strategic partnership. Let's see whether this one is. Here we go. Hi, Theo. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. I'm blessed. How are you?
Yeah, I'm blessed too. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, this is Now Tell Us.
I love
And
it.
we are honored to have you here because we know that you have got a lot to tell us.
Mm,
Can we know
always.
where you are?
Yeah, so I'm just outside Liverpool in the UK.
That's beautiful. Liverpool. When you mention Liverpool, and we love hearing those names: Liverpool, Arsenal, Manchester United.
Yeah, not
Yes,
the
you
not
must
the
be.
best season for Liverpool so far, but still, we've had plenty of things to celebrate, so I'm sure we will again.
Yes, so we agree with you when you tell us you're blessed. Yes, you really are.
Yeah,
You-
for sure.
yes, and I saw a cup. Most awesome, Dad. Tell us about that.
I did. I was gonna say I bought it for myself. I didn't. It was I think it was a Father's Day gift from one of my children. So, but it's probably the biggest cup of tea I've ever had, which is great, which is why I like it so much. I think it's double the size of a normal cup.
Yeah, it looks so. It looks
It's huge. It's like a big
gigantic.
tanker of tea.
It
Yeah.
looks like that. Yes, and you mentioned tea. When we go to some other places, we hear of coffee, but then this is England. You should
Oh, it's got to
expect
be tea. It's got
it's
to be
gonna be
tea.
tea.
Yeah.
Yes, and we are influenced by the English. From where I come from, I come from Kenya, and
Yep.
we love tea. We love tea.
Yeah, yeah. I'm a tea connoisseur. In fact, I'd probably go so far as to say I'm a tea snob. So if you
Yeah.
give me the wrong type of tea, I don't like it, and I will let you know.
Mhm.
Um, so in fact, to the point where my family laugh at me about this actually. So my wife is from South Africa, so her family are all South African. And
Ah,
whenever I travel anywhere, I take my own tea bags with me because I never like anybody else's. And
mhm.
everyone's always laughing at me. You're such a snob. How can you take tea bags around the world with you? But wherever I go, I promise you, my suitcase will be full of tea bags.
I love that. I love that. Now, looking behind you, I see angle. What is that? Is it a seven? Oh, and then there's a nine before you.
Yeah, so there's
Now,
Kenny
tell us.
Dalglish, Ian Rush. So it's two signed jerseys. Kenny Dalglish was Liverpool's and still is actually Liverpool's all-time greatest ever player,
Mhm.
certainly in my opinion. And then the one on the other side, let me go that way, is Ian Rush. He is Liverpool's all-time greatest ever goal scorer, and unless something incredible happens, I don't think he's ever going to be beaten. I think he's going to hold
Wow.
that title forever.
Now, it seems, apart from being somewhere where sports is very well much appreciated and loved, you
Yeah.
seem to have a very deep connection with sports. Tell us about that.
So I'm an ex-professional player.
Uh-huh.
So I played, got professionally until my early 20s, and then I got medically retired, and then I went into coaching, and I hated coaching. I used to say being a coach was being like a recovering alcoholic trying to manage a bar. I wanted to be on the field. I didn't want to be on the side of the field teaching people what to do.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I like to spend. I did a little bit of coaching, really disliked it, left, and that was what took me off into the world of business. But the more I've worked in business, the more I've kind of been drawn back into sports. So one of my businesses today is a sports consultancy working with sports brands all over the world, predominantly football. Doing my MBA in football business. Yeah, so football in particular will always have a special place in my heart, but sports in general, because I think there's a lot you can learn from sports. I mean, I often like to say that I introduce business to sports and sports to business because you take the winning mentality from sports and introduce that into business, but then you take the acumen and the money making opportunities and the ingenuity of business and bring that into sports. You know, as a winning combination, and people see them as very separate, but actually, having lived in both worlds, I think there's a lot that they can learn from each other.
Wow. And we are ready to learn quite a lot in this episode because I see you're fully packed with some insights, some inspiration here. We are ready to hear.
Good, let's do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, taking business and sports together and
Mhm.
join is it's quite interesting. And now, which is your most loved moment in life in all that line that you've come?
Oh wow. Um, I think if I was to talk about my best moment in life, it's hard to look beyond my children.
Mm,
I'm a father of two young girls, two young daughters. Um, being a father has a profound impact on most people, I think. But my life was certainly never the same again after becoming a father. Everything kind of changes. You go from being almost young and carefree and just kind of wanting to make money and have fun to thinking about much deeper things like legacy and being able to give something to your children. And I'd never thought about legacy before. I mean, I was barely giving any thought as to what I would think of me next week, never mind what people would think of me next century. Um, so and if I had money, I would spend it. That was the thing. If I had $10 in my pocket, I'd spend it. If I had $10,000 in my pocket, I'd spend it. If I had $10 million in my pocket, I'd find a way to spend it, right?
mm,
And
mhm,
then children come along, and it suddenly changes your perspective on everything. So I think, personal life wise, and if I life in general, I think definitely my daughters. I think that's a great place to start. Um, I think business wise has probably been quite recently actually, because I fell sick in 2020, early 2020 with COVID.
mm,
And I ended up in a hospital. I had pneumonia for 7 months. I developed a problem with my heart, so they didn't know what was happening with that. So I was on heart medication, still am on heart medication for that, to try and keep that under control. And before that happened, I was a self-confessed workaholic, right? I was working 6 days a week, 15 hours a day, easily. Very successful. Business was doing very well, but that's all I was. All I
mm,
was a businessman. I mean, I ran three successful businesses, and that was all I did.
mhm,
Now I work 2.5 days per week. I am off more than I'm in, and our businesses have never been more successful. They're more profitable, they're achieving better results, they're hiring more people, they're doing more things. And I think it's because it really changed my perspective on, not trying to wear every hat and do everything, but instead recognizing what my superpower was. So, if I may, I use the example with my clients of business is a team sport. And it
mhm,
really doesn't matter how good you are at your position on the field. If you're not surrounded by people who are equally as good at what they do, you're not going to win a trophy.
mm.
Or worse still, if you're the only player on the pitch, it doesn't matter how good you are, you're going to lose. You could be the best striker in the world, but if you're the only person on that field playing against 11 men, you're going to lose,
Yeah,
right?
agree. I agree.
So
Uh-huh.
business for me came a lot more about, well, how do I focus on my position? How do I focus on the thing that I'm best at and surround myself with, both employees and partners and strategic alliances and what I call NCPs, non-competitive partnerships. So people who work with the same target audience that I do, but deliver a different service or product. Because my attitude became a lot more, I would rather have 50% of a great big pie with a partner than 100% of a very small pie that I'm having to do all by myself.
Mm,
Plus, you achieve much better results for people when you're partnered with. Here's my superpower. So, using sports, using football, if I'm a
mhm,
great winger, my game has got even better by working with a striker. It's
mhm.
also got even better by working with a midfielder who can give me the ball. right? It's got even better by working with defenders who can keep the goal out of the net, and then there's a great goalkeeper in goal. So now I have a fully fledged squad, partnerships, everything else, and away we go. And that for me was a real eye opener. And I think that's probably one of my proudest moments is waking up one morning, probably within the last 18 months to 2 years, looking at my business, realizing how little time I now actually spend in my business, but also seeing how successful it is, not just for me, not just for my clients, but for all the people who work for me as well.
Hmm. Wow, that's cool. And yeah, come to imagine of it like just 2 months back, that's when we were celebrating the World Cup. And then we are
Yeah.
seeing all these teams go to the field. Not one person, even though they celebrate the striker, they celebrate the captain. It's not just a one man's job, it's
No.
a collective thing. And when the team wins, we celebrate the team, we
Correct.
celebrate those who scored, but then it can't be without the others.
You're so
So
right.
we've got to work together to achieve that one goal. So I get it.
Definitely.
Hmm. Now, it's easier said than done. I
Mm.
know, I know you've been there.
Hmm.
I have a business getting started, and I want to grow it big. And I can
Yep.
imagine that I can not have a big successful business without assistance.
Hmm.
Just how do I start bringing in people? Do I bring them all together? Like in sport, do I bring one by one? How do we
It's
go
a good
about
question. Yeah, so I think there's a couple of ways of looking at that.
it?
One of the questions I get asked a lot is, do I hire somebody or do I try and get the business to a point where I can afford to hire somebody? Like what should I do? And my answer is always the same, which is, well, I always start with partnerships, because partnerships, I don't have to find money for a salary. I don't have to try and design a role that I don't understand. I mean, using the sports analogy again, if I'm a great winger, what do I know about hiring a goalkeeper? I'm not a good goalkeeper. So
Mm-hmm.
how am I going to know when I'm hiring a good one? But
Mm-hmm.
if I've partnered with a great goalkeeper and now I'm trying to hire somebody, at least I have an idea what that great goalkeeper looks like, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the partnerships are really a great way. They are the lifeblood of business. And one of the things that really surprised me as I got to kind of like the top of my industry was quite how often these partnerships happen. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
much, and I mean this respectfully, but much lower down the food chain, when you're first getting started, you're like, I'm just going to do this myself and I can't let my competitors know what I'm doing. And you're kind of in this little isolated bubble where you're just only looking at yourself.
Mm-hmm.
People at the top of the industry, they're doing deals with each other all the time. They're doing partnerships. It's so natural. You get into a room with great people and the conversation just instantly goes to, yeah, we should do something together. We don't even know what it is. We just know that it would be fun to do some work together, so we're going to make a plan and we're going to do it. But you
Mm-hmm.
don't see that when you first start. So you try and struggle and hustle. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I hate that mentality of the hustle lifestyle. That drives
Yeah.
me crazy, because
Mm-hmm.
for me, rest is probably the most important component of success. And it's the one thing that most people are trying to skip. They're trying
Mm-hmm.
to work and work and work and work and work. It doesn't work like that. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
again, going back to the sports analogy, if you just played the best game of your life, the last thing that you should be doing is going and playing another game. You're going to get injured. Rest, stop, go and ice your legs, go and have a shower, go and get a massage, go and sleep for 2 days, go and do some R&R. You need to recover. You can't just
Yeah.
play another game. You can't just play game after game after game after game, because we
Mm-hmm.
understand that you're going to pull a muscle, you're going to get injured, you're going to rule yourself out, you're going to burn out, which is the worst. But people don't think about that for their brain, and they don't think about that for their heart and their soul. They think about that for their body, but they don't recognize that the brain can burn out.
Mm-hmm.
Your passion can burn out, your creativity can burn out. If you don't give yourself time to rest and recover, you're pushing yourself too far. So couple of things I want people to look at with this. So the first one is I use something that I call the 4 Ps. And the 4 Ps are purchasers, partners, promoters, platforms. So I'll explain them. Purchasers, it's pretty obvious, right? Someone's going to become a customer. Partners, in my world, we call these NCPs. So who works with the same target audience that you do, but delivers a different service or product, because then you can support each other. Then you've got
Mm-hmm.
the promoters, which are people who are your super fans that will introduce you to more of the first two. And then you have platforms, so stages, podcasts, television opportunities, media opportunities, keynote speaking gigs, workshops, networking, etc., that can introduce you to more of the first three. If you focus your time on meeting those 4 Ps, your business will grow. You will find partnerships. The problem that most people have is they just network blindly. They have
Mm-hmm.
no idea what it is they're trying to do. They just go around and meet people.
Mm-hmm.
But I always say to people, and I'm sure it's the same for you. So let me ask you this question. Do you believe in this statement? It's better to be famous for 50 of the right people than 5 million of the wrong. Do you agree with that statement? It's better to be famous for 50 of the right people than 5 million of the wrong.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you don't want to be Instagram famous. You want 50 of the right people to know who you are. So let me tell you an
Mm-hmm.
interesting fact about that.
Mm-hmm.
Every single person I've ever asked has agreed with that statement, no matter what level of business. Everybody. Here's
Mm-hmm.
the funny part about it. Not one person can tell me who those 50 people are for them. So they all recognize that it's better to be famous for 50 of
Yeah,
the right people than
I
5
agree.
million of the wrong, but they have no idea who those 50 people are. So if you
Mm-hmm.
don't know who they are, how are you ever going to meet them? There is no
Good question.
plan, there is no strategy. It's just, well, I just hope I will bump into somebody. Well, how will you even know if you do? Because you don't know what you're looking for.
Mm.
Right? So you've got to get
Mm-hmm.
clear on your intention, and you've got this is what I talk about when I say stop waiting to be discovered and invite yourself. The best way to invite yourself is to know who it is that you want to meet and do business with and go and find those people. That's point number 1 about the 4 Ps. Point number 2 is about understanding your superpower. So going back to the sports analogy, what position do you play? Because if you don't know, how can we start to recruit and build a team around you?
Mm.
If you don't know if you're a goalkeeper, a defender, a midfielder, a winger, a striker, you don't know, then how am I supposed to find you teammates? How are you supposed to find you teammates? How is anybody supposed to help you if you don't know? So you said to me, is it better to start with one or is it better to start with the whole team? It's better to start with you, because if you don't know who you are, we're screwed. Like what are we doing?
Wow.
What team are we building if you don't even know what your superpower is? So
Mm-hmm.
it has to start with you. It has to be, what am I the best at? Where am I happy spending 80% of my time in my business because it's my superpower? It's the thing that makes me special. And quite often it's the thing that people play down, right? It's the thing that people just go, "Oh, anyone can do that. It's easy." Well, no, it's easy for you because it's your superpower. It's not easy for somebody else.
Mm.
That right there is quite often the thing that most people just dismiss.
Mm-hmm.
They say, "Oh no, I don't have a superpower." And then you say, "Well, what about this? You're amazing at this." And they go, "Oh, that's just easy." And they don't recognize that what they're doing is downplaying their own superpower. That's not the point that you should be saying that's easy and ignoring it. That's the
Mm-hmm.
thing that you should be spending 80% of your time on, and now going out and meeting the 4 Ps and start building your superhero team or your sports team, whatever analogy it is that you want to use, because now you know what you are. Now
Mm-hmm.
you know that that's your superpower. That's the thing that you need to work on. So now let me use mine as an example. I am a fire type personality.
Okay.
So what that means is very good at sales, very creative, love talking, love building things, great idea person. Let me tell you the downsides to that. Can't get me to sit still for love nor money. I'm terrible at writing things. If you leave my taxes to me, they will be late. I have loads of ideas that are half open and never finished because I
Mm.
have this idea, I start working towards it, and then I have another idea, and then I go over there. So who did I need to partner with? I needed to partner with action takers and strategic thinkers who take my idea and go and put it into action. I
Mm.
needed to partner with people who are quiet and methodical and introverted who say, we hate talking to customers. We don't want to be on stage. What we want is him just to give us his tax receipts and on his numbers. We'll just do them in the background. Don't need to talk to anyone. Don't need to do anything. He pays us. We save him money in tax. Taxman's paid on time. Everyone's happy. That's how I build my superhero team. But that's because I know what my strength is, which is why it has to start with you.
Wow. Wow, that's a truckload. And thank you very much for dropping that. Now, let's come here and use a little time scenario. Here
Hmm.
is Anthony. He loves interviewing people. Here he is with Phil,
Hmm.
and he has a podcast. He
Hmm.
wants to grow this podcast into a big thing,
Hmm.
uh, a recognized brand,
Yep.
some making seven figures.
Okay.
How does Anthony go about it?
Okay. The first question I'll ask you is why. Why?
Why?
There's easier ways of making seven figures. Why?
I'm I'm waiting to hear this. Which of
No,
them?
why? I'm asking seriously.
Why?
Why? Like, why do you want to do it? What's the motivation for you?
The motivation for me is the motivation that I give to other people. The motivation that my client, my guest, give to the listeners of this podcast. Because I am committed to helping people become the best version of themselves.
Okay. So
Does that?
you've mentioned motivating people and you've mentioned money. Let me ask you a question. If you could make 1 million downloads this year or $1 million, which one would you choose?
Uh, that's a hard question.
Yeah, it's a good question though.
It's a good question.
Would
If
you
I can,
seriously and think about it logically? Don't just think about the money because you could think, well, with $1 million, I could do a load of philanthropic work. I could help a lot of people,
mm,
or with 1 million downloads, maybe there was 1 million people who are half listening and never learned anything.
yeah, just before you mentioned that, I said, okay, maybe the million downloads that because I've registered to some courses that I never went through. So
Hmm.
I'm imagining if I
Yeah.
have a million downloads, then maybe it's gonna be of no use. So if I have
Yeah.
$1 million
Hmm.
and I could be philanthropic, I could
Hmm.
support other people who wants to start a project, and I inspire them more than with just words, but practically. So let me go for the $1 million.
Okay. Now, the reason that that's important to know is because they're two different strategies.
Uh-huh.
Because if you want to make $1 million from your podcast, you need to be interviewing prospective customers. You need to be finding partners to do partnership deals with. You need to be finding stages and platforms to speak on that can introduce you to more of your customers. You need
Mm.
to focus on your podcast, learning and earning. That's it. They're the only two things you're focused on, learning and earning, right? That's how
Learning
I
and
use our podcast. We make millions of dollars a year in sales from our podcast. We don't sell our advertising. We don't sell the programs on the podcast. We don't charge anybody to listen to the podcast, and we don't charge any of our guests. So how do we make millions of dollars? We make
yes.
millions of dollars by monetizing the relationships that we make. Because
Mm.
I would rather meet someone on the podcast and do 100,000 deal with them as a partner than I would get 100,000 downloads. We get over 1 million downloads plus each month on our podcast, and I've always said the same thing. I don't care if anybody's listening.
Mm.
I don't care. This is me having a conversation and I'm learning and earning. And if other people want to come on that journey with me, then that's really clever for them. And I'm really delighted they're here. And don't get me wrong, I love that it's helping their life and their business, but they're not my motivation for doing it. It's the same
Mm.
when you talk about charity, right? So when you're giving money to charity, you should do it for the love of giving, not for the reaction that comes from other people.
Mm. It's a
Your
good one.
love of giving is why you're doing this. If you were raised in a Christian country, you know that it's a big part of the religion. Same with
Mhm,
Muslims, right?
mhm.
In fact, it's one of their pillars of faith. Charity is a big part of this. It doesn't say give money to charity if they're nice to you about it or if they're really grateful. It doesn't say
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
So it makes no difference. In fact, they say the best form of charity is the charity that is done in secret. The stuff that
Mm.
nobody ever knows what it is that you're doing and how it is you're giving back. Right?
Mhm.
So why
Yeah.
am I saying this? I'm saying this because I see my podcast on top of the money that we donate as a form of charity. Our
Mhm,
content for our podcast and our television network, which reaches 40 million homes, is philanthropic work. We do not charge for that content. We are
mhm,
empowering millions of people's lives through that content. I'm not charging them. But what I
mhm,
am doing is learning and earning with the people that I meet. Because if I'm learning something that's going to help me grow my business, you better believe the listeners are learning something that's going to help theirs. But there's the difference. Because if you want to get to as many downloads as quickly as possible, then the strategy is interviewing influencers that already have a big audience. It's bringing people who've already got a load of people to come to the table and talk to you. It's
mhm,
interviewing Instagram models. It's interviewing Twitch streamers. It's interviewing those people because they already have an audience. And the idea is their audience comes, they hear your podcast. Some of them stick around, some of them leave again. But you do
mhm,
that every time you bring a guest, and your audience grows. The question that I always ask those people is why? What was the point? If the
mm,
point is to make money, then the strategy needs to be on making money. The strategy needs to be on your business away from here, Anthony. What do you do? Who are the 50 people that if they knew that you existed, it would make your life and your business better? Interview those people. That's
mm.
the difference between those two strategies.
Not 1,000 people who don't add up to my goal, my vision, my dream.
No, otherwise, what's the point? Look, you could always make another dollar. You can't make another minute.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
right now, the thing that you're investing in your podcast is not money. It is
Mm-hmm.
far more valuable than money. It's time. So if you're
Yeah.
investing your time, which you will never get back, your family deserve your time. I don't know what your situation is away from here, but your family deserve your time. Your friends deserve your time. Even when you have children, they deserve your time. Your spouse deserves your time. Your parents deserve your time. And
Mm-hmm.
you're giving it away. You're
Mm.
giving it away. And if you're giving that time away, it has to be contributing to something. Otherwise, what's the point? We can all go out there and interview 100 people a year on our podcast that don't mean anything and don't add any value. Well, you've just wasted 100 years of your own life that you're never going to back. Each year, you're going to waste 100 hours. 100 hours a year.
Yeah.
That's 24 hours in a day, and you're going to waste 100 in a year speaking to the wrong people. That's terrifying.
Really. Yeah, it is. It is terrifying. And I would like to hear from all you who are listening there. Is this helpful? Is this something that is making sense to you in whatever it is that you're doing? Now, I believe, now for me,
Mm.
it's making a lot of sense coming from Philip, and with the great experience that he has and everything that he's doing is making a lot of sense. So be ready to see some changes in the podcast,
Yeah, you should.
to see some results somewhere along the line. And thank you to each and every one of you who's commenting. If you have a question, ask Philip when he's here. Ask him. Now, all of you who are saying it's great talk, that's a fact. Please prepare a question and ask before Philip goes. So let's keep going. Tell us
Mm,
more. Um, Now, so I start with a partnership right from word go. Uh,
mhm,
Although having known my strengths, uh, now going even deeper to the situation at hand, that
mhm.
Anthony has a podcast. He likes interviewing people and talking, and but then he doesn't like the editing part.
Yeah.
How do I go to how do I bring on that partner who is an editor, and how do I maybe benefit from that in different ways, or not only and how does the partner benefit? Uh, how is that strategic part
Yeah,
of
I get
this?
it. So I'll tell you what I did. When I so my somebody that's been with me now for I was gonna say 6 years. I think it's 5 years actually. He now works for me, but was originally a partner. So how this
Okay.
worked was, he had just graduated university in India. He had a master's degree in audio engineering. He's a really shy guy. Doesn't like talking to people. That's not his thing, right? So
Mm-hmm.
he loves podcasts, but he doesn't want to be a podcast host, and he sure as hell doesn't want to be a podcast guest. That's not what he wants, but he enjoys
Mm-hmm.
podcasts. So I said to him, "Look, I see what you've done. I see your qualification. I'm good at this bit, like on this side of the mic. That bit I hate, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm winning clients from this. And the thing that's slowing me down is that I have to take 2 days in between these calls to edit it. If I
Mm-hmm.
didn't have to do any of the editing, I could fit in another 2 interviews, which means probably another 1 or 2 clients. How about I give you a slice of the revenue that comes from the clients from the podcast in return for you doing the editing for me?"
Mm-hmm.
And he went, "Yeah, absolutely." Because he loves listening to the podcast. He's
Mm-hmm.
also really great at giving feedback because he hears me so often. He's like, "That was a good point," or "What were you talking about there? Like, I've not heard that before," or "This bit, like, why don't we do this?" And he's become a great confidant for me, somebody who actually I've now grown a team under. But that
Mm-hmm.
started as a partnership. That started as an exchange. There was no salary. There was a look, if I don't make any money from this thing, we don't make any money together. But
Mm-hmm.
if I can go away and interview prospective clients and partners and that turns into $1 million worth of revenue, here's 10% of that for you. Take it. Let's go.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's,
I think when it comes down to partnerships, a lot of the time the best approach is just to be completely honest. It is to go to somebody and say, "Look, what I have is this. I have this platform and I interview people and I'm using it to grow the business. What I
mm-hmm.
don't have is this." Right? So this is my superpower. This is my weakness. I'm looking for somebody who their superpower is my weakness and their weakness is my superpower, because together we can create something really special and make a lot of money and have a lot of success together, as well as helping a lot of people in the process. Who's
Mm-hmm.
up for that? And the
Mm-hmm.
right people will find you. But I have to stress this, Anthony. I like this phrase a lot. It doesn't happen by accident, it happens
Mm-hmm.
by design. So if you don't plan this, if you don't start having these conversations, I was having this conversation about 3 weeks ago with a client of mine, and they said that they really wanted to bring in this partner into their business and they didn't know where to start. Said, I haven't met anybody yet. I said, well, where have you tried? And they said, well, I mean, I haven't. I mean, I was kind of just hoping I'd bump into somebody at a networking thing. And I was like, that's such a crazy idea. I mean, like to me, that kind of feels a bit like, you're single and you want a relationship and you're hoping that someone's going to knock on the door at your house and say, hey, do you want to go out? Like, that's not how this works.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how you find the love of your life. You've got to be strategic. You got to plan. You got to get out there. You got to take the right action, right? Take the action, see the results. So if you want a partner, and this is exactly what I said to them, why don't we make a list of the people who you would really like to partner with? Not names, criteria. So what do they
Mm-hmm.
look like? How many years of experience? What size business are they operating? What do they know? What do they not know? Let's build that criteria and let's invite 10 people that match that criteria onto your podcast to build a relationship with you. Within 3 days, they had 4 offers of a partner and have now picked the one that they want to work with. So they had 4 to choose from. And the only difference between what they were doing before and what they did after was that they took deliberate action to go and try and find that person. They invited 10 of them onto the podcast and built a relationship with them. Let's use another example. If you want to be a keynote speaker in your industry, right? Loads of people, I hear them say this all the time. Why is it always my rivals that get these speaking gigs and these television opportunities? Let me
Yeah.
tell you, there's always one of 2 reasons. That's it. Just 2 you need to learn. Reason number 1, they paid someone a lot of money to introduce them, like a
Mm-hmm.
publicist, PR, whoever. Number 2, they networked strategically to get the introduction. If you're not doing one of those 2 things, it's never going to be you on that stage. This is what I mean when I say stop waiting to be discovered. That doesn't exist. No one is going to ring you up, Anthony, and say, Anthony, I was really impressed by your podcast. Would you like to come on the USA Today show? That's not how this works. It doesn't work like that. You have to introduce yourself. You have to put yourself at the cool kids table. And if that's not you and you're not taking those actions, you're never going to get there. So here's the thing. Let me give you a great example. Let's say that you want to speak at industry events. So you make a list of 10 events that you would love to speak at.
Mm-hmm.
And 8 to 9 months before that event happens, you invite the event organizer onto your podcast. Why? Because what are they focused on? Selling sponsorship, selling tickets.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Maybe exhibition stand, but it's always those 2 things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Selling sponsorship and exhibition and selling tickets. So
Mm-hmm.
if you invite them onto your podcast for free to give them exposure to try and help them sell more tickets and get more sponsorship, they're going to love you and they're going to come on your show because that's exactly what they're trying to do right now.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But notice how it's law of reciprocity. You're giving to them before you get anything back. Everyone else is take, 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 and you're giving first.
Yeah.
And then at the end of your discussion with them, you say, I really enjoyed that discussion. I'd like to get involved in this event. How can I get involved? Are you more or less likely to be invited as a speaker
I am
than you
more
were
like
sat at home?
I'm
Absolutely.
more likely to be invited.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. I get that. Wow. I feel like a millionaire.
Good man.
I feel like a millionaire already. Now we have a question from one of our viewers.
Yeah, far away.
Her name is Eve and Gichunge, and
Hi,
she's
Eve.
asking when it comes to planning for a partnership, what are the key points to consider? Because
Mm,
yes, she says she's tried before and it never worked. The most
mm.
challenging part was how to manage income, and that income wasn't much.
Yeah, okay. So Eve, I will answer it, and I have a follow-up question as well. If you could type that in the comments, so then we can bring that up as well. So when you say it never worked, what do you mean it never worked? It never worked in terms of it never produced any revenue. It never worked in terms of it was kind of like high school where one person does all the work and the other one never does anything. When we did those group projects and there was always that one person that never did any work. Does that happen in partnerships? Yeah, sometimes it does. So when you say it didn't work, what do you mean it didn't work? What specifically about the partnership didn't work? And the reason I'm asking that, whilst I'm kind of finishing this answer, is that there are different, like symptoms in the body, right? Depending on what didn't work, will give me an idea of what it was that didn't come together for you, because there's always a missing ingredient. So if we're talking about money, so profitability, there's a formula that I like to use, which is visibility plus credibility equals profitability. So if you weren't as profitable as you like, it was because either visibility or credibility was missing. And I'll give you some examples, not just you, Eve, but everybody. I'll give you some examples of what that looks like. So if you are visible, but you are not credible, you're Instagram famous. You're someone who's doing a lot of podcasts. You're speaking on a lot of stages, and your income does this. You go on stage, you make money. You go off stage, you no longer make any money, right? And your income's constantly doing this like a giant roller coaster the whole time because you have visibility but no credibility, which means that when they see you, they buy from you, but when they don't see you, they don't trust you enough to buy from you,
Mm,
right? Then there is the credibility piece, which is where most business owners find themselves, which is they're really good at what they do. They get repeat customers, they get referrals, but nobody knows they exist. They are their industry's best kept secret. Nobody is thinking of coming to you because they don't know your name,
mm,
right? That's what happens when you have a visibility problem. But when you combine those two things together, you make a lot of money. So here's my point about that. If you weren't as profitable as you want, I would spend more time thinking about what it is that's your superpower. Is your superpower the visibility side or the credibility side? Because the partner that you need to go with needs to be a superhero on the other side. So, for example, I have business partners of mine who are absolutely phenomenal at the credibility piece. They're great at getting testimonials and social study. They're great at getting reviews and recommendations. Anthony, I'm terrible at this. At one point, we had like 300 recommendations on video, and they were nowhere except on my computer. I hadn't put them on my website. I hadn't put them anywhere. So nobody knew that they existed. They were just sat there. I didn't do anything with them. That's insane, right?
mm.
But
Sure.
I am really great on the visibility side. I can generate millions of people, lots of interest, lots of eyes. I like to say for my clients, I am the stage, the microphone, and the spotlight. That is the bit that I am best at. So when I am partnering with somebody, I have to partner with somebody that understands the processes of the credibility side. Because
Mm,
if we can get somebody who is methodical and systems driven and careful and focused and deliberate, and combine that with my excitement and energy and creativity, we become incredibly profitable. But if I hired somebody just like me, we would not be profitable.
mm,
So you have to make sure that you're hiring somebody who has the superpower where you are weak.
mm. Very well said. Very well said. Yes, if the question has been put to you, and tell us why did it fail? Was it did you not make any money?
Hmm.
Did someone work more than the other? Did you get some tricky situations going on and then you parted ways? Tell us
Hmm.
as we proceed. Now, this is, oh, I don't know. Now, before we go, we proceed further.
Hmm.
Can we know, because I know many people would want to connect with you, how can people connect with you to get much of what you're telling us here?
Great, thank you. So you can definitely get in touch with me at billionairesinboxers.com. You can also come and check out my LinkedIn profile. It's a great place. In fact, let me tell you a secret. It's the only social media account that I actually manage myself. So if you do want to talk to me rather than someone in my team, LinkedIn is a good place to come and play with us. And I also have a quiz, actually, and I'll give you this. I'll tell you it here, and then we'll include it in the show notes as well. It's a free quiz. But if you go to www.theunderdogchampion.com, www.theunderdogchampion.com, you will find a free quiz. It will take you about 5 minutes to complete, and it will give you an idea of your personality type, what's likely to be your strengths as a superpower, and then also what's likely to be your weakness in regards to those areas. That might give you a bit more idea as to who you should and should not be partnering with.
That's cool. So we're gonna go there. We will target after we are through with the show. We'll target
Mm,
that there. Now I think Eve replied, uh,
mm.
and this is what she is. Uh, I think we had not considered those points here, and yes, she says that you have elaborated very well. She did not consider those points that you've just given us now.
Yeah, Eve, it happens. Look, and I don't want you to listen to this and think, "Oh my God, Phil's brilliant at getting all these partnerships together." I've worked with really bad partnerships as well. Everything I'm teaching you right now is because I've tried every wrong door before I found the right one. So I'm trying to give you this information so that you can have the business cheat codes. You can stand on the shoulders of giants and go and do these things, so you don't have to make the painful mistakes that I've made. And I think, as I said to Anthony, one of the big ones here is it doesn't happen by accident. It happens by design. And I think too often when people are going into a partnership, they're afraid to have the difficult conversation. They're afraid to set out expectations and say, here's what I am bringing to this relationship and what is required of me and what I expect to bring to this. What are your expectations? What are you bringing to this? And how do we hold each other accountable? Because if you don't have that conversation, you can't then introduce it later on. You can't then say to somebody, I don't think you're working hard enough. Well, what is that based on? You have to say right from the beginning, Anthony, I have said that I am going to interview 5 prospective clients every single week, and I'm expecting to bring on 2 or 3 of those clients. What you have said is that you are going to edit 5 of these shows so that we can release them, 3 to 4 of them a week. Agreed? Agreed.
Mhm.
Okay, so if I turn up next week and I haven't interviewed anybody for 2 weeks, Anthony can say to me, "Hey, Phil, you said 5 a week, dude, and it's been 2 weeks and you've not interviewed anybody. What are you doing?" But at the same time, I can hold him accountable and say, "I'm doing my 5 interviews a week. You've not edited anything for 2 weeks. What's going on?" But if we've not had that conversation at the beginning, and I say, "Hey, I wanted you to edit 5 a week," and he's going, "I thought I was going to do one every month." Like, I don't know what's going on. We didn't agree this. So save yourself the heartache now and have that very open and honest conversation. Yes, find somebody whose superhero fits your superhero. So somebody whose superpower is your weakness and vice versa. But don't be afraid to have the difficult conversation. Don't be afraid to lay out expectations and say, here's what I'm bringing, here's what you're bringing, here's why these 2 things combine together.
Wow. Thank you very much, Theo.
Mm.
So Eve continues to say, what I get is that the best idea is picking someone who is able to counter in part. I am less experienced, and then we grow together and make our sales better.
Oh, absolutely.
Thanks.
Absolutely. I mean, look, people will tell you that you should focus on your weaknesses, right? It's like, you've got these weaknesses, you should strengthen them. I completely disagree with that. Completely disagree with that. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's an old mentality that came from our school days, where school taught us that we had to get straight A's across the board.
Mm-hmm.
If I got an A star in one subject and failed every other class, I'd be suspended. My parents would be called into the head teacher's office. I'd be in detention. I'd be in trouble all the time. But if I did that in business, if I got an A star in one thing and failed every other, I'm a multimillionaire.
Wow.
Because in business, I being an A star at the thing that I'm best at is what makes me successful. What if school was really going to line us up to be a successful entrepreneur? What they should have allowed us to do is take those 8 subjects at the beginning of the year, and each person would do 2 of them, and you would be a team of 4. And every person would go and do the 2 subjects that they were best at. So at the end of the year, you would hand in that collective report card and say straight A's across the board. That prepares you for being an entrepreneur. But you're absolutely right. Finding somebody who is strong in the areas where you are weak is incredibly powerful. But you've also got to look at that the other way, which is they are going to be so grateful for the things that you are great at and so powerful at. So it's not just you getting something, it's them getting something as well. And that's the best type of partnership, is when both parties can look at the other one and go, I love working with this person because they are strong where I am weak.
Wow. I think at some point we're gonna change our school system.
I hope so. I hope so, because it doesn't work, right? It's not fit for purpose. Another great example with that would be, if you were in a maths class, for example, and you're not
Mm-hmm.
very good at maths, and you turn to your friend who's a maths genius and you say, "Hey, what did you get for number 2?" Right? I'm getting a detention, right? If I
Mm-hmm.
did that in a maths exam, "Hey, what did you get for number 2?" I'm
You're
getting
out.
expelled.
You're
I'm getting
out.
kicked out of school. I'm getting kicked out of the exam. Let me tell you something. That in business saves you millions of dollars, hours of time, and is what gets you to the top of your industry. Your ability to turn to the person who is much better at something than you are and say, "How did you do this?" is exactly what makes you successful in business. You do not have to reinvent the wheel all the time. It's why every person at every level should have a mentor. I have 5 mentors. I mentor hundreds of people every single year, and I still have people that go, "Oh, I'm really surprised you have mentors. You're number one in your industry and you help hundreds of people." It's like everybody needs a mentor.
Mm.
Because how arrogant is it to say, "I don't need a mentor"? That means I'm the best at everything. That's not true. It's completely arrogant. But
Yeah.
the reason that I have mentors and that I support them and they support me is so that I can go to somebody that I know, like, and trust and say, "Hey, Anthony, listen, I know you're the best at this, and I'm not good at this at all. What did you do to fix this problem? Because it's driving me insane. And if there's
Mm,
anything that I'm really good at that you need help with, I'd love to return the favor." And Anthony's going to go, "Well, Phil, actually, you got a top 5% podcast, million downloads plus, making millions of dollars. That's what I'm trying to do. Like, how did you do that with your podcast?" It's like, right, okay, great. You help me with this bit. I'll help you with that bit. We've just made loads more money, helped a lot more people, and saved goodness knows how much time. But in school, we were taught that that was cheating. That in business is innovation and succeeding.
okay, okay, Phil. Here are my notes. I'm not going to hide my paper again. Here are my notes. Wow, yes, exactly. That's what you are told at school. You're gonna hide your paper, nobody's gonna see. Now,
Yeah.
I will be cheating. Now,
Yeah.
we've got a very different perspective right now.
Mm-hmm.
All you viewers, all you listeners, you better go out there and share your notes. And this is where we got this that first, you've got to know yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like the philosopher said, know thyself. Was that
Mm-hmm.
Aristotle? Know
I think so.
thyself. Yes, know thyself. So once you know thyself, then know whom you need to connect with that is more stronger, that has more that has a superpower that is different from you. And when you come together, that's what we are talking about, strategic partnerships. Whatever is going to come out of this is what we call synergy, in such a way that 1 plus 1 is not equals 2, but is equals to 11. 1
Mm.
plus 1, 11. How's that?
I love that, man.
Wow. So thank you very much, Theo. It, it, it is seems like it's 20 minutes, but we are almost doubling the time for this episode.
Good. Well, I hope you and your audience have enjoyed it.
Oh, really? No more than just enjoyed. I mean, we are coming out of this fired up for the next phase of our dream.
Good, because you can do it. I truly believe that you can do it, and anybody listening to this do it. The thing that I want everybody to take away from this and to remember is that they need to invite themselves. Stop waiting to be discovered and invite yourselves, because I promise you, I am at the top of my industry. And I'll tell you the one thing that none of these celebrity entrepreneurs want you to know, none of these keynote speakers want you to know, none of these TV hosts want you to know. They feel just as insecure as you, they have just as much imposter syndrome as you, and their business is in just as much trouble as yours is. The only difference is they didn't let fear stop them, they invited themselves. So you can do it too.
Can I invite myself to your podcast, please?
You should come, brother. Absolutely. We're going to be recording the next season in the summer. So, absolutely. I'll give you my email address after this. You can get in touch with the team. We'll make a plan.
That's beautiful. I'll be there.
Let's do it.
Yes, thank you very much, Philip. It's such an honor that you came to this episode, and we really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You're most very welcome.
Yes, as a reminder, because I don't want us to take a lot. I know you. He hasn't exhausted himself, so please, as a reminder, every viewer, every listener, go to Billionaires in Boxers. He didn't even tell us what that is, but you gotta go and
Do you
why
want me,
that.
do you want me to tell you? It was a joke. So we got picked up as a global radio station, and then when we got our first international television series, they needed a name for the show, and
Mhm.
everything I suggested they hated, like to the point where I was almost banned from naming my own TV show. So I started joking, like I just started sending jokes, and I said, "Well, how about billionaires in boxers? Because I grow global empires from home and rarely put on pants." And they were like, "We like that," and I was like, "No, it was a joke." And they said, "No, we really like it." So we did the whole of season one. Season one was very successful. So now we've rebranded the business. So all three of our businesses, the broadcast business, the number one business consultancy in the world, and the sports consultancy, are all billionaires in boxers. And every little bit of it was a joke. It was all a joke. And there's something very special about the fact that so many people resonate with the brand, so many people know the brand, but it was still my sense of humor. I find something quite special about that.
Hmm. Billionaires in boxes. Now, Philip left us with the idea that a joke can become serious.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
Definitely. Wow, it's such an honor. So go to billionairesinboxers.com and get to connect with Philip Pelucha. It's been a wonderful episode. Thank you very much, Philip. We really appreciate it.
You're most welcome. I appreciate you.
Yes, and we also appreciate you, our viewers, our audience. We really love the questions you ask, the sharing. Please remember to share with all your friends this episode because there's a lot that they can gain from it, and because you are helpful to them, they could be helpful to you. You never know. That's part of the strategic partnerships. Let them know there is something good happening these sides. And that's about it for this episode of Now Tell Us. I have been your host, Anthony Morore, and together with Philip Pelucha, we're saying bye for now. Cheers.